Everything starts with a choice, and for Kokonoe Yukito, that choice was a death sentence for his heart. Under the dappled light of a memory he can't outrun, Hinagi delivers the blow. She wasn't just a friend, she was the girl from the sandbox, a constant fixture in his life who was supposed to stay. Instead, she looks him in the eye and chooses someone else. She says it with a terrifying finality, because I decided to go out with my senpai. He runs, but you can't outpace your own skin. The world is a blur of high-contrast shadows and burning lungs as he tries to flee the sound of her voice calling his name. If love can be discarded like yesterday's trash, then the concept itself is a lie he's done believing in. His fist clenches against his own chest, a hollow gesture for a heart that's already checked out. He realizes then, with a bitter clarity, I'll never understand. The damage is total, it's not a crack, it's a complete structural failure. He stands on the edge of a breakdown, watching the fragments of his social life tumble into the dark. There's no coming back from a betrayal this deep, not when it takes root in your soul. He stares into the void of his own future and makes a single desperate wish. I just want to disappear. Fast forward to Shoyo High, Class 1B. The air is thick with the smell of new floor wax and the frantic energy of teenagers trying to reinvent themselves. For most, the first introduction is a gamble for popularity. For Sakurai Kana, it's a stage. She winks, she waves, she beams like she's auditioning for the role of the century. I'm Sakurai Kana, I want to get along with everyone. While some students aim for safety, and others for the top of the social ladder, Yukito is playing a different game entirely. He's looking at the social hierarchy like a minefield he has no intention of crossing. If popularity is a currency, he's trying to declare bankruptcy before the first bell even rings. He knows the only way to stay safe is to be seen as absolutely worthless, a shadow with no substance. He stands up, hands slamming onto the desk with the authority of a world leader, but the words out of his mouth are social suicide. He thanks them for being there just to drop a logic bomb that leaves the entire class short-circuiting. With a face as serious as a heart attack, he delivers his manifesto, but I plan on dropping out of school. The silence that follows is deafening. You can practically hear the gears grinding in his classmates' heads as they try to process what just happened. To them, it's a breakdown. To Yukito, it's a perfect defensive perimeter. He even catches himself smiling. The plan is working. The teacher is stuttering, trying to find the manual for student wants to quit on day one, while Yukito just lets the irrationality of the moment wash over him. He's not done yet. He leans back, instructing the class to treat him like he doesn't exist. He's aiming for a level of social invisibility so high it's almost spiritual. I'll pretend to be asleep, so I want you to think of me as an ethereal existence. He caps it off with a laugh that is anything but inviting, convinced that he's successfully made himself the most unapproachable person in the building. Fujishiro-sensei isn't giving up that easily, offering a listening ear for his problems, but Yukito has built a fortress of cynicism that no teacher can breach. He meets her concern with a thumbs up and a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He's already made peace with the wreckage of his life. He tells her straight, my life is already ruined. But every plan has a flaw, and Yukito's flaw is named Mihou Kouki. The popular kid with the bright smile is currently laughing so hard he's probably going to need an inhaler. He doesn't see a social pariah, he sees a comedian. He leans in, oblivious to Yukito's internal screaming, and declares the year is going to be a blast. You're actually funny. Yukito watches him through a lens of pure suspicion. He's seen this archetype before, the guy who sparkles just by breathing. He's convinced Kouki is using him as a social prop, the dull rock that makes the diamond shine brighter. It's a calculated move in his head, a way for the king of antisocials to be exploited by the golden boy. He's waiting for the punchline, for the other shoe to drop. When Kouki persists, Yukito reaches for his wallet. In his world, every interaction has a price, and he'd rather pay cash than pay with his heart again. He pulls out a 10,000 yen note, dead serious, trying to buy his way out of a friendship he didn't ask for. Kouki just laughs it off, pulling out his phone to swap contact info instead. So, what are you doing after school, Yukito? Enter the queen of the bright people, Sakurai Kana. She's already planning a group karaoke outing, and Yukito is the guest of honor he never wanted to be. He looks at them like they're predators and he's the prey, his mind flashing images of snakes and mongooses. He needs an out, and he needs it now. He tries to deflect with a name that makes absolutely no sense. Can I call you Elizabeth? But then, the air in the room turns to ice. Amidst the chatter and the plans for singing, Yukito's gaze locks onto the ghosts of his past. There they are. Hinagi and Shiiori, the architects of his current misery, sitting in the same room, breathing the same air. The karaoke invitation isn't just an annoyance anymore. It's a trap set by fate to drag him back into the shadows he just escaped. He doesn't walk out, he retreats. Every step away from that classroom is a desperate gasp for oxygen. He mumbles an excuse about making dinner, about a mother who works late, anything to put distance between him and those two faces. He knows he can't be near them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Being in the same room as them is a poison he hasn't built an immunity to. Suzurikawa Hinagi, the childhood friend who chose another. Kamishiro Shiiori, the person responsible for taking everything else. To Yukito, they aren't girls anymore. They're symbols of a life he's lost. He looks at their faces and sees only the debris of his own heart, wondering where that natural innocence went before it was replaced by the cold reality of betrayal. He had a plan. He checked the class lists, he swore he'd stay away from them. But destiny apparently has a cruel sense of humor, putting both of them in his line of sight from the very first bell. It's too much, too fast. The list on the wall wasn't a directory, it was a warning he didn't heed in time. While Yukito is spiraling at home, the rest of the class is at the karaoke bar, and his name is the main topic of conversation. Some see him as dangerous, a ticking social bomb, but Kouki isn't buying it. He remembers a different Yukito, a guy he played basketball against back in middle school. He knows there's a foundation under the rubble, even if Yukito has spent the day trying to hide it. Shiiori leans in, her voice tight with a question she's probably been holding for years. She asks Kouki if he knows why Yukito never showed up for that final tournament. It's a ghost story they're all part of, a moment where a star player just evaporated. The answer is locked in a vault, and Shiiori is the one who holds the key, and the guilt. She can't say it out loud, she can't tell them that she's the reason for the silence. Her gaze drops to the table, the shadow over her eyes darker than the room itself. The truth is a jagged piece of glass in her throat. She knows exactly why he's like this, she knows why he won't look at her. Because Yuki hates me. She remembers him when he was whole, back when the gym was his cathedral and the ball was the only thing that mattered. He didn't just play, he worked until his body screamed, staying late after everyone else had gone home. He was possessed by a drive that was both beautiful and terrifying, like he was trying to outrun something even then. He was a force of nature in school uniform. He changed everything. The lazy energy of the club evaporated whenever he stepped on the court. He was the kind of person who could shift the gravity of a room just by standing in it. Shiiori watched him, her heart beating in time with the rhythm of his dribble. She was worried he'd break himself, but she couldn't stop looking. He was incredible. But admiration is a dangerous thing when mixed with a child's confusion. She couldn't handle the weight of her own feelings, and instead of holding him, she broke him. The memory is a series of sharp, jagged cuts. She betrayed him in the worst way possible, and in doing so, she ended the boy he used to be. The realization hits like a physical blow. I took everything from him. The air in the karaoke room finally snaps. Hinagi and Shiiori are sitting side by side, but the distance between them is a canyon. When Hinagi suggests that Yukito's absence today is her own fault, it's a challenge. They're both drowning in regret, and they're starting to pull each other down. They look at each other, not as friends, but as rivals in the race to see who hurt him more. The happy outing is officially dead. Shiiori stands up, her shadow looming over the group as she demands to know exactly what Hinagi is to Yukito. The rest of the class can only watch in horror as the social facade crumbles. Hinagi doesn't flinch, she stares right back, claiming a history that Shiiori can't touch. I'm Yukito's childhood friend. Sakurai jumps in the middle, playing the human shield. But these two are already past the point of no return. They're trading insults that only make sense in the context of their shared failure. Shiiori points a finger, accusing Hinagi of being the cause of his change, while Hinagi fires back with a question that tastes like venom. But what about you? What did you do to him? The night ends not with a song, but with a walk of shame. The girls leave separately, their heads bowed, while the others try to salvage the wreckage of their fun. The atmosphere is radioactive. Kouki sits in the corner, watching the door swing shut, thinking about the guy who isn't even here, but somehow managed to destroy the room from a distance. You really did something wrong, Yukito. Welcome home, Yukito. Now, time for the real trial. His sister Yuri is waiting for him, her gaze sharp enough to cut through the silence of the apartment. She's seen the reports, heard the rumors, and she isn't in the mood for games. She stares him down from across the room, her voice heavy with a question that sounds like an indictment. "So, why did you answer like that?" To Yukito, this isn't dinner. It's a summary execution. He views his own sister as a judge who's already decided the verdict before he even entered the building. He bows his head, playing the role of the guilty party, wondering how the hell she found out about his classroom performance so fast. He realizes he has a spy among his classmates, and that realization makes the food taste like ash. The meat and potatoes taste like sand as Yuri brings up the names he's been trying to forget. Hinagi, Shiiori. She watches his reaction like a hawk, noting the way he flinches at the mention of them. When he tries to lie, she slams the truth down on the table. In her court, there's only one punishment for those who hurt her brother. Guilty, death penalty. He flees again, this time to the sanctuary of his bedroom. He can't handle her intensity, her protection that feels more like a prison. He brushes off her questions, closing the door on the one person who might actually be on his side. He's so used to being hurt that he's started to see every kindness as a hidden hook, every concern as a threat. Alone in the dark, the voices in his head are louder than the silence of the room. He replays the night, his sister's cold eyes, her sharp words. He's convinced himself that she despises him for what he's become, for the boy who broke and stayed broken. He stares at the ceiling and accepts it as a fact of life, a heavy weight on his chest. She hates me. But across the hall, the truth is much more terrifying. Yuri isn't full of hate. She's full of a protective rage that's bordering on the pathological. She sees the faces of Hinagi and Shiiori, and her heart burns with a singular purpose. She wanted him to have a bright life, but they extinguished it. She clenches her jaw, her gaze fixed on a future where they pay for what they did. I'll never forgive those two. She looks at her own hands and realizes they're part of the problem. Every time she tries to reach out, she only pushes him further into the dark. She sees the fear in his eyes when he looks at her, a look that wasn't there when they were children. She knows the relationship is fractured, that they only speak when they have to. And the hardest part is the admission that follows. I'm the one who made him this way. The name sister is a relic of a past life, replaced by a polite, cold honorific. But the title doesn't matter as much as the duty. As she looks at the school gates, her mind is set. She will be the wall between her brother and the people who broke him. If he won't save himself, then she will be the monster that keeps the other monsters away. She won't let them touch him again. Morning comes, and with it, the repeat of the nightmare. Shiiori and Hinagi are there, lunchboxes in hand, smiles plastered on faces that should know better. They're trying to act like nothing happened, like the past is just a story they can rewrite with a polite invitation. Yukito stares at them, his heart a stone. He wonders if God is just messing with him at this point. Why are you trying to test me? They call it a fresh start, but when your past is a minefield, every step is a gamble. Kokonoe Yukito just wants to disappear into the background noise of high school, but the girls who broke him are starting to crowd the frame. Yukito has a theory. Some people are just born under a dark cloud. His life is a highlight reel of feminine rejection, starting right at home where his mother neglected him and his sister looks at him with nothing but pure, unadulterated loathing. He summarizes his existence in 6 words: I just have bad luck with women. Then there's the childhood friend who found a boyfriend right before he could confess, and the girl from the basketball club who treated his broken heart like a punchline for the whole school. He's tired of being the punchline. Now he's looking for an exorcism just to get through the day. At this point, he's convinced he must have been a tyrant in a past life to deserve this much karma. His empathy is a dead organ, a shriveled thing that stopped responding to the tears of others a long time ago. He looks at the world and realizes one simple truth: I don't understand anymore. The morning air in the classroom is thick enough to choke on. Hinagi and Shiiori are standing over his desk like 2 storms about to collide, and Yukito is caught right in the eye of it. All he can think is, why are they fighting in front of me? It's a battle of fake smiles and sharp words. Hinagi claims she spoke to him first, while Shiiori tries to play the "we'll talk later" card to win points. Yukito watches them with a face of pure sweaty exhaustion. He doesn't want their lunch. He wants a quiet exit. Could you both just go somewhere else? Kouki drops by to check the temperature, but Shiiori sees an opening. She suggests they all join the basketball club together, her as the manager, him back on the court. It's a peace offering wrapped in a memory, but for Yukito, the game is just another ghost story. The invitation hangs in the air for exactly 2 seconds before Yukito cuts it down. I don't play basketball anymore. He doesn't care about his talent or how hard he worked in middle school. To him, that motivation is a fire that's been dead and buried for years. Shiiori freezes. She remembers the result of her betrayal better than anyone. She sees the ghost of the boy who loved the game in the cold eyes of the boy standing in front of her. You know exactly what happened because of that. Yukito stares her down, his gaze flat and empty. He asks her how long she's going to keep pitying him, and the question hits like a physical blow. Shiori's eyes well up, her voice breaking as she tries to tell him it's not like that, but the damage is already absolute. Time to pull the eject lever. Yukito puts on a bright, hollow smile and announces he's joining the Go Home Club because he's too antisocial for anything else. He turns his back on the tears and the tension, walking out with a casual wave. I'm going shopping. He leaves her standing in the middle of a silent classroom. Shiori's heart sinks as she realizes he didn't even call her by her name. He treated her like a stranger, a ghost from a past he's already paved over with concrete. Out in the halls, Yukito stops to watch the clubs in action. He sees the sweat, the effort, and the raw enthusiasm of students who still believe in something. He used to be one of them. He used to practice until his lungs burned, fueled by a passion that felt infinite. I used to practice frantically too. He stares at his own hands and realizes the flame is out. Even if he picked up a ball right now, it would just be leather and air. The excitement died in that one moment years ago, and no amount of nostalgia is going to bring it back. It's no use thinking about it. Hinagi catches up to him, lunchbox in hand and a desperate hope in her eyes. She tries to use their childhood bond as a bridge, reminding him that they've known each other forever. But Yukito's internal clock stopped on the day she betrayed him. To him, forever ended a long time ago. The hallway goes ice cold. Yukito doesn't just reject her. He dismantles her entire approach with one brutal observation. I feel bad for your boyfriend. The words hang in the air like a guillotine, and the look on Hinagi's face says the blade just fell. He doesn't stop there. He plays the respectful classmate card, pointing out that her boyfriend was famous in middle school. He makes it sound like he's doing her a favor by staying away, treating their past like a secret that would only cause her trouble if it leaked. For something like this, you won't forgive me? He paints a picture of social propriety, telling her it's for her own benefit. He asks her if she'd really want her boyfriend to see her getting close to another guy, especially a childhood friend. It's a masterclass in psychological distance, and Hinagi is left speechless as the logic traps her. The distance is final. When she chose someone else, she burned the bridge they built as kids. Yukito watches her tears fall, but he doesn't reach out. He knows the truth that she's trying to ignore. There is no way we can return to our original relationship forever. He offers a casual apology and heads for the exit. Internally, he admits the truth. He loved her once. But as he walks away, he realizes that the day he understands those feelings again is a day that is simply never going to arrive. The classroom gossip machine is already in overdrive. Did she really have a boyfriend? Was he from another school? Hinagi can only stand there, clutching her ribbon, while the weight of her choices crushes her. She knows this is all her fault. The tears finally break through. Hinagi stands alone, holding the lunch he wouldn't eat, facing the absolute wreck of the relationship she took for granted. The realization is a silent scream. It's all my fault. The school day grinds on, indifferent to the heartbreak. The teacher announces an upcoming field trip, a hiking trail meant to deepen interaction. The catch? They have to form teams of 4. For Yukito, this is the ultimate survival challenge. Yukito has a strategy. Be so unapproachable that nobody wants him. He plans to be the leftover piece that the teacher has to force into a group. It's his role as the social pariah, and he's playing it to perfection. This is my role as someone antisocial. Fate has a sick sense of humor. Kouki, the golden boy of the class, flashes a brilliant smile and invites him anyway. Before he can even protest, the group is decided: the traumatized loner, the popular guy, and the 2 girls who broke him. Group decided. Now the real nightmare begins. The bus pulls up to the mountain and the class spills out, ready for a day of bonding that Yukito would rather spend in a dark room. He's stuck in a group with the popular Koki and the girls who occupy his nightmares. As Koki tries to play the friendly leader, Yukito takes a deep breath, ignores the awkward silence, and releases a shout to the heavens. It's the only way he knows how to break the tension of his own existence. Hands cupped around his mouth, he bellows the name of the Greek abyss, his voice echoing off the valley walls. Tartaros! The silence that follows is thick enough to choke on. Kouki stares, blinking in confusion, as Yukito tries to play it off as some grand challenge to humanity. He claims he's just testing their potential, but everyone knows it's just him being a freak on purpose. Shiiori and Hinagi are hovering at the back, their expressions a mix of concern and bewilderment. They're stuck with a guy who's currently short-circuiting his own social standing. Looking at Yukito's twitching face, Kouki can't help but ask, "Are you like a broken, noisy robot or something?" The trek begins. It's a steep, rocky path that requires actual effort, something Yukito loathes. While Kouki tries to keep the vibe upbeat by talking about the change of scenery, Yukito stares dead ahead. To him, the fresh air is just a different flavor of misery. He mumbles to himself, "How unpleasant." Watching Shiiori and Hinagi from behind, he realizes these field trips are designed to forge bonds, but for him, that bridge burned years ago. He tells himself he doesn't want to mess up their school life, even if his presence feels like a heavy anchor dragging them down. A sharp gasp cuts through the forest. Hinagi stumbles, her foot catching on a rock. She struggles to hide the pain, but she's limping, her breathing ragged. Yukito stops, his clinical gaze zeroing in on her injury. The others are ahead, but he's right there when she needs to sit down. He drops his bag and says one word, "Suzurikawa." He towers over her, his shadow blocking the sun. "It's not a suggestion, it's a command. You can take them off," he says, referring to her shoes. Hinagi freezes, her face turning a deep crimson as the weight of the request hits her. Behind them, Kouki and Shiiori can only watch with wide eyes as the social pariah starts making demands. Hinagi clutches her chest, her heart hammering against her ribs. "No way, in a place like this?" she squeaks. She's spiraling, thinking about the intimacy of the moment, while Yukito just stares at her like she's a particularly difficult math problem. He tilts his head, completely lost. "What are you talking about? Just take off the sneakers." He doesn't wait for her to process it. He reaches out and gently takes her foot in his hands, his fingers cool against her skin. "You've got blisters on your feet," he notes, his voice flat. Hinagi's eyes well up not from the pain but from the sudden, overwhelming kindness she didn't think she deserved. "Sorry for slowing you guys down," she whispers, but Yukito is already busy digging through his kit. The heavy mood snaps when Yukito gets a little too honest. As he examines the blister, Hinagi starts panicking about, foot odor. "It doesn't smell, don't worry," she insists, but Yukito's face is a mask of deadpan mischief. "If I say it smells bad, it might hurt your feelings," he says, before threatening to just hold his breath. Hinagi's face explodes. "Should I give it a sniff?" he asks, leaning in. Hinagi lets out a soul-shattering scream. "You cannot smell it. It's absolute chaos." Yukito pulls back, his hand over his eyes, finally realizing how this looks to an outsider. If anyone saw this, he'd be hauled away as a pervert. Problem solved, though, the bandages are on, and the disaster is contained for now. He hands Hinagi a drink to calm her down, his medical duty complete. But as he turns away, he feels a tug on his sleeve. Shiiori is standing there, her face a mask of exhaustion and something else need. "Wait," she says, her hand tightening on his uniform. She's seen the care he gave Hinagi, and the jealousy is practically vibrating off her. Shiiori looks like she's about to collapse, her eyes glazed over. "Kokonoe, sorry, I'm also pleased," she groans. Yukito stares at her, genuinely wondering if she's turned into a zombie. He's completely drained, his social battery in the negatives. He makes an effort to point her toward their teacher, but she isn't having it. She wants the Yukito special. He ends up bandaging her too, his patience wearing paper thin. Shiiori is practically sparkling, her eyes wide and hopeful. To Yukito, she looks exactly like a puppy begging for a walk. "Right, that's perfect," he says, patting her hands. She lets out a little bark, literally. Woof. The girl has lost her mind, and she's currently offering him her paws. He attempts to treat her like a dog to see if she'll actually do it. He tosses a candy and yells, "Hey, Kamishiro, fetch!" She actually runs for it. He's stunned, watching her disappear down the path and come racing back like a golden retriever. She presents the candy in her open palms, her eyes gleaming. "Whoa, won't you pet me?" she stammers. He sighs, rubbing his temples. "Listen carefully, you aren't a dog. You're a person." But Shiiori is already in the zone, her face flushed with a desperate kind of joy. Fine. If she wants to play this game, he'll be the professional. He looks her dead in the eye, his hand hovering over her head. "Okay, if you feel like a dog, then I will be the trainer." He goes to town on the head pats, his hand moving in a rhythmic blur. "Good girl, very good." Shiiori is melting, her eyes rolling back as she soaks up the affection she's been starved of for years. But then his hand wanders toward her stomach, and the mood shifts from cute to oh no in half a second. She lets out a high-pitched squeal. "This is different from what I thought." Shiiori collapses on the grass, her body twitching from the sheer sensory overload. Yukito stands over her, looking horrified. "Did you just remember you're human?" he asks. She's panting, trying to explain that doing that to other people is, well, illegal. Yukito's eyes go wide. "Wait, you knew that? Normally that's sexual harassment." Suddenly, Shiiori starts laughing. It's a bright, genuine sound that echoes through the trees. For a second, the years of pain and betrayal seem to melt away. She tells him it feels like they've traveled back in time to a year ago. She reaches out, her hand brushing his arm, a silent plea for him to stay in this moment. But as soon as she smiles, Yukito's internal walls slam shut. He sees that look, that hope, and it makes him feel sick. He realizes that no matter what he does, she'll probably forgive him, and that's the problem. To him, the time between them is stagnant, frozen in the ice of his own trauma. He can't go back. He won't. They finally reach the top. The view is staggering, mountain peaks stretching into the distance under a clear sky. The class cheers, people starting to lay out their lunch mats. Yukito stands there, a lone figure in the middle of the crowd, unfolding his map. "What an excellent view," he says, but his eyes are as flat as the paper in his hands. Lunch is a quiet affair until Hinagi speaks up. She's been watching him, not just today, but for a significant period. She notices how he always carries bandages, how he's always prepared for a disaster that never comes. "I've been observing you for a long time," she admits, her voice trembling with a confession she's been holding back. She pulls something out of her bag. A small, slightly worn bear charm. Yukito's heart skips a beat. He recognizes it instantly. "You still have that?" he asks, his cynical armor showing a hairline fracture. It's a relic from a summer festival they shared before everything went to hell. A simple gift that she's treated like a holy relic. For a moment, they're kids again, smiling over a cheap trinket. But then Yukito remembers his role. He remembers why he's alone. He leans back, the warmth draining from his face. "Are you really fighting with your boyfriend?" he asks, his voice cutting through the nostalgia like a razor. Hinagi flinches, the charm clutched tight in her hand. The ghost of her past mistakes has returned to haunt the conversation. The air on the mountain turns freezing. Hinagi looks at the view, but she isn't seeing the mountains. She asks him a question that's been eating her alive. "If you trample on the feelings of your loved ones, what do you think should be done?" Yukito doesn't hesitate. "I would never forgive them," he says, his voice cold and final. He tells her she needs to start a new relationship, essentially telling her to let him go. He looks her in the eye, his expression almost pitying. "Even if things don't go back to how they were, a new relationship depends on you, Suzurikawa." It's a dismissal wrapped in advice. He's telling her that the Yukito she loved is dead, and the person sitting in front of her is just a classmate. Hinagi nods, her eyes empty. "Thank you, Yukito." The dam finally breaks. Hinagi starts crying, the words pouring out of her like blood from a wound. "I'm so sorry for all the terrible things I've said until now." She sobs. She admits she was excited, thinking maybe they could go back to the old days. But Yukito stands there like a statue, unmoved by her tears. He's already decided that the past is a foreign country he has no intention of visiting again. She drops to her knees and bows until her forehead touches the dirt. "I'm so sorry," she screams. The other students turn to stare, the awkwardness reaching a fever pitch. She admits she was arrogant and selfish, only thinking of herself. In this moment, she's stripping away every layer of her pride, begging for a forgiveness that she knows isn't coming. Yukito is caught off guard by the intensity of her apology. He stammers, his calm facade finally cracking. "I don't remember you saying anything cruel to me," he says, which only makes her cry harder. He realizes he has to give her something, some kind of closure. "I should be the one to apologize. I didn't mean to spread rumors about your boyfriend." Hinagi is shaking, her eyes wide with a desperate, terrifying hope. She thinks he's reaching out, she thinks he's forgiving her, but then he smiles. Not a cold smile, but a gentle, pitying one that's 1,000 times worse. "We didn't end things because we fought," he says, his voice soft and lethal. "It's just that each of us followed a different path." The words hit her like a physical blow. She sees the truth in his eyes. He doesn't hate her. He just doesn't care. To him, she's a stranger from a story he finished reading ages ago. If she had never known him, if she had never betrayed him, he wouldn't have to look at her with that heartbreakingly kind, empty expression. He watches her cry, and feels nothing but a vague sense of duty. He doesn't want to hurt her anymore, but he won't let her back in. He wishes her luck in her new life, but he's already deleted his part in it. To him, they aren't friends, and they aren't enemies. They are just classmates, two people who happen to be sitting on the same mountain for a few hours. The bus is ready to leave, and the students are scrambling to get back on, but then Hinagi stops, her hands frantically searching her bag. Her face goes pale. It's not here, it's gone. The bare charm, the one thing she had left of him, is missing. She must have dropped it during the descent, and the realization is currently tearing her apart. Hinagi is falling apart. "It was the last thing you gave me, Yukito," she whispers. He looks at the bus, then back at the darkening mountain trail. He seeks to be logical, he tells her. She can buy 100 of them, but she screams that she doesn't want to hear it. She's about to run back up into the woods alone, but Yukito stops her. He can't let her go out there in this state. For Hinagi, that charm isn't just plastic and string. It's a proof of existence, a memory of a time when Yukito smiled at her and she was happy. It was the last gift he ever gave her before the betrayal shattered their world. To lose it now feels like a divine punishment, a final cruel sign that their bond is truly, irrevocably gone. The bus pulls away, and Hinagi is pressed against the glass, her tears blurring the forest. She feels pathetic, clinging to a piece of trash, but it's all she has left. She wonders if she should go back as soon as they reach the school, her mind racing with desperate plans. But her feet are a mess of blisters, and the mountain is vast and dark. Back at the school, the mood is heavy. The popular students are gathered together, and Shiiori is looking around frantically. "Where's Kokonoe?" she asks. Kouki mentions that he said he was going home because he felt sick, but Hinagi knows the truth. She stares out the window, her heart sinking as she realizes what he's done. Yukito. He's back on the summit, his silhouette sharp against the fading light. He's breathing hard, his muscles screaming after the double climb. But he doesn't stop. He stands at the top looking down at the path he just descended. "I'm back," he says to the empty wind. He's doing this for her not because he loves her, but because he can't stand to see her so broken. He knows it's a long shot. He knows he might be out here all night. But as he thinks of Hinagi's tear-streaked face, his eyes narrow with a cold, quiet determination. "If I can't find it by the time I reach the bottom, I'll give up," he tells himself. But the way he grips his bag says otherwise. He's diving back into the abyss, one more time, for a memory he's trying so hard to forget. A memory of a different life, frozen in pixels and light. In the dream, we're still smiling, still part of the same story before everything turned into this quiet, aching distance. It's a ghost of a relationship that ended a long time ago, even if the heart hasn't finished counting the pulse. Summer festivals always felt like they belonged to us, but that day, the heat wasn't just in the air, it was in the sudden, burning embarrassment of his hand reaching for hers. She pulled away, hiding her damp palms with a handkerchief, never realizing it was the last time he would ever try to close that gap. The dream offers a kinder version of the world, where they reach the end of the night together, where lips meet instead of words clashing, but fantasies are brittle. The truth is a pile of shattered glass at their feet, and the only thing left to ask is, why? Was it a sin to even ask if things could be different? The dream breaks as a heavy hand finds a small, cheap bear in the dirt. He actually found it. After all the rejection and the cold logic, he's standing in the dark, wondering how much a memory is actually worth to her. Heroism is exhausting. Yukito is running on fumes, bidding a dramatic farewell to his lungs and his social life as he collapses. He barely knows anyone, but he's already managed to ruin his physical health for them. Back in the memory, the night is still bright with lanterns and the scent of candy. Hinagi is all smiles, teasing him about candy apples and getting her mouth open wide for a bite. It's so easy, so natural, it makes the coming fall feel like a betrayal of physics. She doesn't want the fancy prizes. She points to a misshapen, poorly made bear, a little lump of felt that looks like it's seen better days. He doesn't get the appeal, but seeing her that happy makes it worth every shot. In middle school, she became sharper, more irritable. But that night, with the bear clutched in her hand, she promises they'll come back next year, a promise of continuity, written in the stars and sugar. The sky explodes in light, a canopy of fire that should have been the perfect backdrop. She tries to get closer, but the crowd surges, and when he reaches out to steady her, she flinches. He calls her name, Hinagi, but the connection has already frayed. He sees it now. The way she hides her hands, the way she won't look at him. It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. She's moving into a world where he doesn't fit, and every touch is a reminder of a bond she's trying to outgrow. The show is over. Not just the fireworks, but the them he believed in. He should have noticed earlier that their relationship had shifted. She didn't want him to hold her hand. She wanted to be let go. He wakes up to a different kind of burn, a fever of 38.5 degrees. The mountain search cost him more than just sleep, it knocked him sideways. He was fine until he got through the door, and then the world just went dark. Sleep has been his only friend for half a day. He's left with a lingering, nostalgic ache he can't quite name. It's not happiness, and it's not quite sadness, just the weight of that bear sitting on his desk, waiting to be returned. The air in the classroom drops 20 degrees. Yuri is on the warpath, and she's looking for answers. Even the popular kids are whispering, is she here to confess or to start a war? But Yuri only moves for one reason, her brother. She doesn't waste time. She wants to know why Yukito came home drenched during the dead of night after leaving early. Hinagi overhears from the doorway, her heart stopping as she sees the little bear in her mind. It can't be. Hinagi tries to intervene, desperate to know if he's okay. But Yuri isn't here for small talk. She turns on her with eyes that could freeze a volcano. Don't make me any angrier, she warns, the threat hanging in the hallway like a physical weight. Hinagi is practically vibrating with guilt. She admits it was her fault, that she spoke too much. But Yuri's had enough of the lies. She doesn't care about apologies, she cares about results, and Hinagi is currently a source of misery. She has no time for words. Yuri walks away, leaving Hinagi shattered halfway down the corridor. The instruction is clear, don't come near him. The protective barrier is back up, and it's made of ice. Back at the apartment, the corpse is back among the living. Yukito declares his resurrection complete, mostly because he's bored and his stomach is screaming for attention. He needs to put in some effort, or he might actually die of starvation. The door doesn't open, it surrenders. Yuri is back, and knocking is clearly a foreign concept to her. He attempts to play it cool, telling her he's better, but she can smell a lie from a mile away. He's terrible at it. When Yuri gives you that look, you don't argue. You just wave the white flag. She brought supplies, but apparently, the only thing she thinks heals humans is peach-flavored everything. Juice, jelly, drinks, his diet is now 100% fuzz fruit. She's offering everything, wiping his sweat, making porridge, but he's seen her work in the kitchen before. He'd rather bow out than risk food poisoning. His trust in her cooking is buried deeper than the roots of the mountain he just climbed. The screen is a minefield. 10 hours of missed messages from Hinagi, all of them probably some variation of the same panic. He heads out to the convenience store just to escape the pressure of his own room, but the weight follows him. She's actually there, waiting in the night, trembling with relief the moment she sees him. She's a mess of tears and apologies, terrified that something happened to him because of her. He struggles to keep her at arm's length, but the girl is crumbling. He hands it over. Take this ugly bear back, he says, trying to sound indifferent. But to her, it's not an ugly toy. It's a bond she thought she'd severed. She clutches it like it's the only solid thing left in the world. He's still acting like the childhood friend, worrying if her feet are okay, if she smells like sweat. She's caught in the nostalgia, wanting to stay in this moment where they're just two kids walking home late, even if the air between them is different now. She tells him he seems more like himself now, but he knows better. He's changed completely, and the regret is a knot in his chest that's been tightening since that day at the festival. He wanted to change, but maybe he just broke. She wants him to stay by her side forever, like they're still those innocent childhood friends. But he draws a line in the sand. "I can't stay by your side," he says. He'll help if there's a problem, sure, but the role she wants him to play is one he's already resigned from. She can't take the distance anymore. The lie she's been living crashes down. "I'm not dating the senior anymore," she screams. It was all a mistake, a 2-week lie she couldn't take back. She just wants to go back to being friends. She wants home. It's too late. The words hit him, but they don't find a home. He doesn't love Kamishiro-san, but he doesn't love Hinagi either. The most terrifying thing isn't the betrayal, it's that he can't even remember what it felt like to love her at all. She's pouring her soul out now. She was happy when he confessed back then. She's loved him since they were tiny. She wanted to say yes, she wanted to be with him, but the moment slipped through her fingers, and she's been chasing it ever since. His gaze fixes on her with eyes that have gone completely flat. No anger, just a cold, hollow realization. "I never thought you were such a liar," he says. The word hangs between them like a guillotine. It's not just about the senior, it's about everything. He's dissecting her now. If she always liked him, did she just use that senior to make him jealous? Was it all a game? She screams that it's not a lie, clutching the bear as if it can testify for her, but the evidence of her own deception is stacked too high. Back then, she was impatient. Yukito was popular kind, and girls were starting to circle. She told the lie about dating an older student just to mark her territory, to stop the rumors, but it became a chain she couldn't break. Her own jealousy poisoned the well. They had a promise. A pinky swear to always be there. A childhood memory she thought was sacred. He probably doesn't even remember it, but that little bear he brought back for her, it was a piece of that promise he didn't even know he was keeping. She's stuck. Her legs won't move, and her voice is failing. It was so easy to tell the lie, but fixing it is a mountain she can't climb. The lies she told didn't just hurt him, they're currently tearing her apart, leaving her alone in the cold. Why did she do it? The fear of revealing her true feelings was stronger than her need for the truth. "I am horrible," she thinks, the self-loathing drowning out everything else. Her jealousy didn't protect anything, it just made her repulsive to the one person she wanted to keep. If she shows him the ugly parts of her heart, she's certain he'll hate her. But silence is a slow death. She has no choice but to take that last step, to throw away the mask even if the result is total rejection. To remake everything, she has to risk everything. This has to be the last time she asks for forgiveness. She's done being the girl who hides. "Then hate me," she says, inviting his anger if it means they can finally stop living in a lie. It's time to throw away the ugliness and just start over. She stands there, clutching the bear with a gaze that's finally cleared of the fog. This isn't just about childhood friends anymore. This is the weight of Suzurakawa Hinagi's true feelings, laid bare and waiting for a verdict. The real battle for his heart just began. Yuri Kokonoe doesn't do apologies. She does bank transfers. She slams stacks of yen onto the table like she's closing a business merger, her eyes cold as ice as she attempts to buy her brother's freedom from the girls who broke him. When Yukito points out the sheer absurdity of throwing thousands at school supplies, she just narrows her eyes and bites back. "Oh no, I let her leave while she was still angry. If you thought the money was weird, welcome to Yuri's version of bonding." She reaches out a hand, dead serious, suggesting they walk to school like they're in kindergarten again. Yukito stares at her like she's sprouted a second head, his internal social radar screaming as he asks, "Are you crazy?" The moment they step onto campus, the peace of isolation is officially dead. The whispers start like a brush fire, students pointing at the scary senior walking with the invisible freshman. They look too much alike to be dating, but too close to be normal siblings, leaving Yukito wishing for a hole to crawl into. Yuri doesn't care about the rumors, she feeds on them. She hooks her arm through Yukito's, her grip a silent, ironclad claim of ownership. When the whispers get loud enough to confirm they're siblings, she just offers a flat, "I think so too," making it clear he isn't going anywhere. By the time he hits his desk, Yukito's emotional battery is at 0%, But because the universe hates him, Kouki shows up with enough main character energy to power a small city. He's cheerful, he's loud, and he's the absolute last person Yukito wants to see while he's trying to figure out why his morning turned into a circus. Back in her own classroom, Yuri is busy rebranding her obsession. She's heard the term sugar daddy and decided to create a family-friendly version of financial control. She tells her confused friend that since Yukito wants to spend money, she'll just be his sugar sister, providing the funds as long as she gets the attention. Meet Kyuka Suma, blonde, beautiful, and currently at the center of her own social hurricane. Her friends tease her about her popularity, but she's wearing a look of deep concern. She spots Yukito in the hallway, and the gears start turning. There's a specific kind of trouble brewing that only he can help with. She cornered him behind the fence, cutting right to the chase with a request that would make most guys melt. But Yukito isn't most guys. He hits her with a polite, clinical rejection, explaining simply, "I'm sorry, it's because I don't know you very well." Kyuka doesn't take no for an answer. She leans in, her expression softening into something almost vulnerable, and asks why he won't just go out with her to bridge that gap. She's used to being the one in control, but Yukito's blank stare is a wall she didn't expect to hit. While most students would be panicking over a confession from a school idol, Yukito is focused on more important things like his lunch. He sits on the stairs, taking a bite of his convenience store snack and muttering, "As expected, these two sweetbreads are poorly made." Total social shutdown in progress. She tracks him down to his hiding spot, and Yukito doesn't even look up. He just begs her to treat him like part of the scenery. "I'm an introvert," he says, pleading for his quiet life back, but Kyuka is already sitting down, refusing to let him disappear. She plops down beside him, her laughter a sharp contrast to his gloom. She teases him, asking if he's the one who's actually going to confess, but Yukito just sighs. He's already reached his quota for female drama for the decade, and she's just getting started. The tension breaks when Kyuka realizes she's literally losing a popularity contest to a piece of bread. She's beautiful, she's popular, and she's being sidelined for 2 ampans. She explodes, calling him an arrogant senpai, while Yukito just wonders why he can't eat in peace. She's fuming now, her cheeks puffed out in a classic pout that would be cute if Yukito cared about cute. He just watches her spiral, entirely unmoved by her frustration. She's more embarrassed than she's ever been, and he's just waiting for the bell to ring. She finally drops the act and gives him her real name. "I am Suma Kyuka." She's a second year, and she's decided they're going to be acquaintances whether he likes it or not. He gives her a dry, "I am Kokonoe Yukito," hoping that fulfilling the social protocol will make her go away. She leaves with a cryptic smile, promising to see him around. Yukito watches her go, his shoulders slumping as he mutters about what a giant pain this is. He came here for a quiet school life, and all he got was a stalker with a blonde ponytail. He's left alone on the stairs, staring at nothing as the silence finally returns. He's helping everyone, solving their problems, and being treated like a therapist, but no one's paying him. He looks up at the sky, his heart heavy as he wonders, will a quiet school life ever come? The weather forecast lied. A sudden downpour turns the walk home into a damp nightmare, and Yukito is caught without an umbrella. He's sprinting through the rain, his bag over his head, just trying to reach his apartment before he's soaked to the bone. In the middle of the deluge, he spots a woman struggling with a mountain of boxes. She looks elegant, even with her hair damp, but she's clearly overmatched by the sheer bulk of her move. Yukito stops, his natural altruism kicking in despite his cynicism, and notes, "It's a lot of baggage." He hauls the box up, and they realize they're practically neighbors. She's grateful, her smile lighting up the rainy evening as she asks if he's okay. Yukito just offers a blunt, "I'll help you," but he nearly trips over her outdated slang. Apparently, calling a high school girl a JK is vintage history to her. Once inside, the chaos of the rain is replaced by the quiet warmth of her new home. She serves tea with a practiced grace, her presence mature and soothing. She finally introduces herself. "My name is Himiyama Misaki." For the first time all day, Yukito feels like he can actually breathe. The moment he gives his name, her expression changes, she knows who he is. Yukito is instantly on guard, asking, "Do you know me?" But before he can panic, she slides across the couch, sitting far closer than a stranger should. He's trapped between the armrest and her kindness, and he has no idea how to escape. Then, she drops a bomb of a backstory. She was supposed to marry an heir, but infertility treatment failed, and his family discarded her. It's heavy, it's raw, and Yukito is wondering why a woman he just met is telling him her life's tragedy. She sighs. If I'd had children back then, maybe I wouldn't be alone. He doesn't have the heart to walk away from someone that broken. He tells her that people would have been happy to have her as a teacher, and Misaki looks at him with eyes full of doubt. She asks if he really believes that, and he just nods. I think so, he says. Unaware, he just opened a floodgate of affection. She grabs his hands, her face lighting up with a desperation that's almost terrifying. She asks, "Can you be my friend from now on?" Yukito, caught in the tractor beam of her gratitude, can only offer a weak sure. Next thing he knows, they're heading to his house to introduce her to his parents with a bowl of soba in hand. Yukito's mom is mid-housework when the doorbell rings, and finding her antisocial son standing there with a beautiful older woman is the last thing she expected. She stares, her rice cooker forgotten, as she asks the million-yen question, "Who is?" Misaki is laying the charm on thick, explaining that Yukito-kun helped me carry my baggage. But Yukito is currently having a localized heart attack because she won't let go of his hand. His mother is watching with wide eyes, and he is frantically trying to figure out how to explain this without sounding like a sugar baby. She leans in, her voice a dangerous whisper, as she tells him he can have unlimited returns for his help. "You can ask for whatever you want," she says, her smile radiating pure, unadulterated affection. Yukito's brain is currently short-circuiting, especially when she adds, "I'm going to hug you," and then she goes for it. She pulls him into a hug that defies the laws of physics and personal space. Yukito's face is buried in her chest as he gasps. "It's so soft, I'm drowning." His mother is in the background screaming for him to hang on, while Misaki just hums, content to finally have someone to dote on. She finishes the assault with a series of gentle head pats, a gesture so sincere it actually reaches through Yukito's defenses. His gaze lingers on her, then shifts back at his own mother, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. She's not like my mother, he thinks, and the bitterness of his own home life feels sharper than ever. Misaki eventually says her goodbyes, leaving behind a house that feels twice as empty. She apologizes for being rude, but Yukito just stares at the floor. The moment the door clicks shut, the distance between him and his mother feels like a canyon that neither one knows how to cross. His mother watches him, her heart breaking as she notices the resignation in his eyes. He expects nothing, he wants nothing, and she knows it's her fault. She asks herself, "When was the last time I pampered my son?" And the answer is a silence that screams of years of neglect. She decides right then that it's too late to fix the past, but it's not too late to try for a future. She's going to work from home, stay in the house, and finally be the mother he needs. Yukito just looks at her, confused by the sudden shift, but she's already making plans to tear down the wall she built. She ties her apron strings tight, a silent vow to reclaim the family that slipped through her fingers. She remembers him as a boy with a basketball, full of life before the world, and his own home turned cold. We can start over, she tells herself, but Yukito's heart isn't something that can be fixed with a home-cooked meal. The peace lasts exactly until Yuri Kokonoe slams the front door. She's seen the neighbor, she's smelled the change in the air, and she is in full territorial mode. She grabs Yukito, her eyes burning with a manic intensity as she declares, "If there's something you want me to do, I don't need money." She's throwing her savings at him, begging him to use her instead of some random neighbor. When Yukito tells her he doesn't actually spend that much, she nearly has a meltdown. She calls the whole situation insalubrious and starts demanding he let her cooperate with his life by force. She leans into his space, her face flushed red, her eyes swirling with a possessiveness that borders on the divine and the deranged. "I'll do anything," she whispers, her smile finally settling into something soft but absolutely unyielding. She's not just a sister anymore, she's a guardian who will burn the world down to keep him close. The chapter ends with Yuri domesticating her own insanity in the kitchen. She's washing vegetables with the same intensity most people reserve for ritual combat. Yukito can only watch from the living room, his life officially overrun by women who want to save him. He can only mutter one word, insalubrious. The sun is beating down on the tracks for the first-year fitness test, and the teachers are watching from the comfort of the air conditioning. They've noticed some of the boys are moving at a clip that suggests they're trying too hard. Meanwhile, Yukito is currently teaching his lungs a lesson in fire breathing, pushing through the grit of the track while his internal monologue keeps time with the thumping in his chest. Right on his heels is Mihou Kouki, looking like he's posing for a sports drink commercial instead of actually exerting himself. It's the perfect picture of the gap between them, the main character gliding through life and the guy just trying to survive the period without his heart stopping. Over at the flexibility stations, Kamishiro Shiiori is rewriting the school records with terrifying ease. The girls are circling around her like fans at a concert, marveling at the sheer, effortless athleticism that makes her a legend in the making. She looks like she's just stretching for a nap, while everyone else is treating the reach test like a life-or-death struggle. She has a physique that's been blessed by the gods, a natural-born athlete who'd be a waste anywhere but on a court. But as Yukito watches her from the sidelines, the glow fades. He sees the slight tremble in her hands, the way the sweat isn't just from the heat, and the sudden paleness that she's trying to mask with a practiced smile. He steps into her orbit, cutting through the praise with a voice as dry as the dirt. "You look a little unwell, Kamishiro." She tries to laugh it off, insisting it's nothing, her eyes darting toward her friends for backup. But Yukito isn't buying the performance. He's seen enough fake smiles to know when one is about to crack. He leans in, delivering the truth like a cold compress. "You're good at lying." He doesn't wait for her defense, turning on his heel and leaving her standing there with her heart pounding for a completely different reason. She catches up to him, the facade finally dropping as she admits she just forgot to eat breakfast. It's a stupid, mundane mistake for a star athlete, but in the twisted logic of their history, it feels like a confession. Yukito checks her vitals with a clinical detachment that's almost insulting, making sure her pulse isn't racing for the wrong reasons. The rest of the girls look on, baffled by the sudden, weirdly intimate tension between the class ghost and the basketball queen. Shiiori is practically vibrating with a weird sort of relief, her ponytail swishing back and forth like she's got a motor in her neck. Yukito watches the hair with a deadpan stare, pointing out that her hair seems to function as a mood ring. "Does your ponytail have the function of a dog's tail?" The girls are horrified by the comparison, but Shiiori is too busy being delighted that he's actually looking at her. For a second, the air between them isn't thick with the past. She apologizes for worrying him, and he just tells her not to overdo it. It's a ceasefire, a small patch of stable ground in a relationship that's mostly been a minefield. But as they walk back toward the school building, the silence is still heavy with the things they haven't said yet. The peace lasts about 5 seconds before the basketball club girls swarm. They slam their hands against the walls, pinning Yukito in a recruitment pincer move that's more aggressive than a full-court press. He looks around at the sudden influx of athletic girls, his internal logic failing him. Did I reincarnate into a gal game world? The girls are desperate, pitching membership like it's a cult recruitment. Shiiori steps in, her presence acting like a magnet for every scout in the hallway. She makes a bold play. If Yukito joins, she'll be the manager. It's a power move that leaves the recruiters drooling and Yukito wondering if there's any corner of this school where he can actually be invisible. The madness escalates as the track team joins the fray, literally dragging Yukito away by his blazer like he's a prized heifer. He's caught in a tug-of-war between clubs that see him as the golden ticket to getting Mihou and Shiiori on their rosters. The track captain is beaming with enough intensity to power a small city, while the boy is left staring into the sun of his optimism, praying for a total eclipse. Baseball, tennis, soccer, it's a riot of jerseys and rackets. They aren't just recruiting, they're hunting. Yukito watches the stampede with a cynical eye, realizing that in an era of a declining birth rate, any breathing teenager with a pulse is a valuable commodity. This is a negative effect of the declining birth rate. He manages to slip out of the chaos, leaving the athletes to fight over the empty air he just occupied. Mihou is practically doubled over laughing at the sheer disaster Yukito's life has become. Yukito just looks at him with a gaze that promises violence or a very long lecture. The teacher walks in, completely oblivious to the war that just happened in the hallway, and announces it's time to draw lots for seat changes. Yukito has a bad feeling about where his luck is headed. The new seating chart puts him right in the middle of the gal quadrant. The girls are treating him like a brand new toy, marveling at his dry wit, and the way he doesn't seem to care about their popularity. He's being poked and prodded like a prize specimen at a zoo, officially labeled as the class's rare animal. He just sits there, wondering if he can file for an endangered species permit. Suddenly, everyone wants in on the study group. The popular kids are crowding around, and Yukito is trying to set boundaries before his quiet corner turns into a festival. He insists on an introverts-only policy, but when the guys start begging for help, his defensive line starts to crumble. He's becoming the center of attention by trying desperately to avoid it. The noise level finally hits a breaking point, and the teacher slams her notebook down. She's already stressed from the faculty room politics, and she's not in the mood for a classroom party. She singles out the main offenders, and Yukito finds himself lumped in with the three stooges of the go-home club. He stares back with that irritatingly blank face that makes teachers want to assign extra homework. Yukito isn't worried about the exams. He's got his sister's reputation to maintain after all. He looks at Shiiori, who is currently blushing and begging for his help with her grades. He doesn't go easy on her, naming her the final member of their group of academic misfits. "You're stooge number 3. She takes the insult with a smile that's far too bright for someone being called a dunce. Because of Shiiori's massive popularity, the private study group has bloated into a full-scale seminar. Every desk is filled with people who are probably there more for the company than the calculus. Yukito stands at the front of the room with a textbook, realizing he's accidentally become the headmaster of a club he never wanted to join. He starts assigning numbers like he's running a clinical trial. The girls are checking their ranks, and Suzurikawa Hinagi is holding her book tight at number 8. She looks insecure, a far cry from the confident girl she used to be. Yukito doesn't offer any special treatment, just a command to get to work. The atmosphere in the room shifts from social hour to a survival course. The chalk clicks against the board as Yukito starts dissecting high-level problems with surgical precision. He's not just teaching, he's predicting. He tells them exactly which questions are going to show up on the test, and the room goes dead silent. They're looking at him like he's just pulled a rabbit out of a hat, wondering how the class ghost became an academic oracle. The secret is simple, Yuri. His sister has been feeding him past exams like their holy scripture. The class erupts into cheers, treating him like a god who's just handed down the 10 commandments of passing grades. They're shouting Yuki-sensei, and practically bowing at his feet, while he just sighs and moves on to the next set of equations. Shiiori slams her hands on the desk, protesting that a study group is supposed to be about mutual learning, not a one-man lecture. She wants the connection, not just the answers. Yukito just looks at her, his head tilting in that infuriating way. He doesn't see a group, he sees a task to be completed as efficiently as possible. The bluntness finally draws blood. Miki is crying on her friend's shoulder, declaring she hates how coolly he dismisses them. Even Mihou is feeling the sting, admitting that Yukito's effortless brilliance feels like a betrayal of their shared struggle. He's standing there at the board, looking like the villain in someone else's success story. Yukito's composure finally slips. He's not used to being the bad guy in this specific way, the guy who's too good for his own good. He feels the heat of their stares, realized he's accidentally stepped into a rival scenario he never signed up for. He just wanted to help them pass, and now he's somehow the common enemy. To save the session, Hinagi steps up. She's surprisingly good at breaking things down, her voice soft and patient compared to Yukito's clinical edge. The group splits up, and suddenly there's a real rhythm to the room. Yukito watches her from a distance, seeing the Suzurikawa-sensei that used to be his best friend. She's in her element, and for a moment the tension in the room actually starts to dissolve. The classroom turns into a hive of activity. Mihou and Shiiori are doing their part, teaching the others and keeping the energy up. Yukito sits back, his work done, watching the social machinery grind away without him. He's the architect who built the machine and is now just watching it run from the safety of the shadows. The gossip starts in the corners. The other students can see the sparks flying between Shiiori and Hinagi, the unspoken rivalry over who gets to be closest to the boy who doesn't want anyone. They're comparing themselves to them, realizing the high-stakes game being played over a few math problems. Yukito catches the whispers, but he just keeps his eyes on the blackboard. The bell finally signals the end of the marathon. The students are slumped over their desks, their brains officially fried from the sheer volume of information. Even Shiiori looks like she's seeing double, her eyes spinning in her head as her mental circuits finally blow a fuse. They've survived the session, but they aren't sure if they've survived Yukito's teaching style. To clear his own head, Yukito mentions he's heading to the park to shoot some hoops. The word basketball hits Shiiori like a physical blow. She thought he'd given it up entirely, that she'd destroyed that part of him forever. He just shrugs it off, saying it's a way to relax, his hand gripping the edge of his bag with a tension that contradicts his casual tone. She stands there, her eyes shining with a desperate, hopeful light. She asks if she can join him next time, her heart visibly on her sleeve. Yukito doesn't give her a yes, but he doesn't give her a no either. He just looks back at her and delivers the ultimate permission. Shouldn't you just do whatever you want? It's not an invitation, but for Shiiori, it's a door left slightly ajar. The rhythmic thump of the ball against concrete is the only thing keeping my head from spinning. I thought this would clear the static left by the study group, but the ghost of middle school is a stubborn roommate. Every shot serves as a stinging reminder of what I threw away, leaving me with nothing but a persistent, low-level sense of discomfort. I should have known peace was too much to ask for. Shiiori bursts onto the court like she's been shot out of a cannon, arms raised and energy radiating off her in waves. I didn't actually think she'd follow me all the way here. She beams at me, shouting, "Yuki, the warm-up exercises are finished." Before I can even process her being here, the situation spirals. A group of college guys from the university team, the Stobas, spot us. They remember me from middle school, and suddenly my quiet afternoon is a full-blown reunion. They approach with that easy, athletic confidence that makes my skin crawl, greeting us like we're old friends who actually want to be seen. Then comes the inevitable question that makes everything worse. One of the guys looks between us and asks point blank, "Is this beautiful girl your girlfriend?" Shiori's brain seemingly short-circuits. Instead of a normal denial, she starts rambling about being a dog or a mutt, taking the insult I gave her earlier and wearing it like a badge of honor. It's awkward, it's loud, and it's making the college guys question our sanity. She isn't backing down from the bit. She grips the ball and yells it at the sky with terrifying pride. I have the Kamishiro family pedigree. The silence that follows is thick enough to choke on. The college guys are staring at her like she's a fascinating new species of disaster. I just want the earth to open up and swallow me whole. I have to step in before the rumors start having children. I bluntly tell them she's just a classmate, ignoring Shiori's crestfallen expression. But the Stobas team is already fired up. They don't care about our drama, they just want to play. They invite us into a match, and before I can invent an excuse, the court is alive with the sound of sneakers squeaking against the pavement. The ball moves. Muscle memory takes over, overriding my cynical brain. I'm weaving through the defense, the sensation of the ball familiar and grounding. Shiiori is right there with me, her eyes locked on the basket with a focus I haven't seen since middle school. For a few minutes, the history doesn't matter, only the next pass. There's no pressure here. No clubs, no expectations. Just the sun going down and a game that means absolutely nothing. For the first time in years, the knot in my chest loosens. This feeling isn't trauma or resentment, it's something I thought I'd lost forever. This feeling is just fun. I'm glad there was at least one piece of the old me left to find. The college guys head out, waving goodbye and promising a rematch. Shiiori watches them go, then turns to me, noticing how drained I look. She asks if I'm heading home, but my body is screaming for a sugar hit to offset the exhaustion. I look her dead in the eye and deliver my only demand. I want crepes. The crepe stand is a neon island in the twilight. Shiiori is practically vibrating with joy, convinced this is some kind of romantic breakthrough. I'm just here for the chocolate and strawberries. She watches me eat, her own crepe forgotten for a second as she wonders aloud if this counts as a sweaty encounter. I ignore her, focused entirely on the sugar high. The air between us feels lighter than it has since high school started. Shiiori admits she didn't know I still had this side of me. She gazes at me with a smile that feels dangerously genuine, her eyes bright as she confesses. It felt like I was back in middle school and I was so happy to be with you. I don't have the heart to crush it. Not yet. The nostalgia breaks when she makes her move. She stops walking, turning to face me with a request that carries too much weight. She wants to be my manager. She wants to watch me play again. She knows it's unfair, knows the history we have is a minefield, but she says it anyway. This is my egoism. I want to see you play again, Yuki. I can't give her what she wants. I don't have the motivation or the goals she's looking for. I've grown comfortable in my isolation, getting used to being lazy and unremarkable. Shiiori is different. She's someone who belongs in the light, someone others rely on. She shouldn't be wasting her energy on a ghost like me. Her cheerful personality is a lifeline for so many people. I know that because it used to be one for me too. Seeing her smile like that is a reminder of everything I lost and everything I'm still trying to protect myself from. The world stops. I feel the impact of her against my back, her arms wrapping around me like she's afraid I'll vanish if she lets go. She's trembling, her voice breaking through the silence of the evening. She isn't just asking for a second chance, she's laying everything bare. I want to stay with you. After all, I love you, Yuki. In that moment, I don't understand anything. Why say this now? Why drag up feelings that are supposed to be buried? It's painful, falling in love, or being the target of it, when everything is already broken. I can feel her tears soaking into my blazer, and it hits me with the force of a physical wound. She pulls away just enough to look at me, her face flushed and tear-streaked. She thanks me for always protecting her, even after what she did. She wants me to know this isn't just about guilt or making amends for the past. Her eyes search mine with a desperate, crushing sincerity. It's not a feeling of guilt or atonement, they are my true feelings. I try to find the words to push her away, but my brain is failing me. I tell her her heart rate is only high because of the exercise, trying to turn her confession into a biological accident. But she doesn't budge. I can't find the right things to say to someone who has moved so much closer to me than they ever were before. She breaks the tension with a small, calculated smile, pointing out the cream still on my face from the crepe. She wanted me to notice her, to really look at her. Then the weight returns. She asks the question that cuts through my defenses. Can't I be the reason this time? I tell her to give up. I call her request disgusting, trying to use the same cruelty that usually keeps people at a distance. I want her to stop, to leave me alone in my quiet, gray world. But Shiiori just smiles, accepting the insults and the rejection, as if they were gifts. She's not going anywhere. She stands under the streetlights, tears falling freely now, but her smile is the brightest thing in the world. It's terrifying. She looks me right in the eye, her heart wide open and bleeding, and delivers her final blow. Believe in me. I love you, Yuki. It's not a lie. It's not redemption. This is my desire. I escape the street, but the thoughts follow me home. Love is such a vague, illusory thing. My mother is divorced, the statistics are grim, and yet people still promise eternity. I find my neighbor, Himiyama-san, waiting for me. She's finished her move and wants to re-invite me over. It's another social trap I'm too tired to avoid. She offers me cake, but the real dessert is the overwhelming proximity. She sits right next to me, her body pressing against mine with a casualness that comes across as a physical assault on my personal space. I feel like I've been kidnapped in my own building. My brain is screaming a single panicked warning, she's seducing me. The scent of her is everywhere, a warm, floral aroma that's systematically dismantling my resistance. She apologizes for smelling like sweat from the move, but it doesn't matter. I want to move to get away before I'm trapped in this swamp of sensory overload. It reminds me of how my mother used to be when I was a kid, so beautiful I couldn't even look at her. The air turns heavy as she brings up her past. She had a fiancé, but things fell apart. She asks me if I'm curious about her, and before I can answer, she's diving into her own history. I mention my mother is divorced too, trying to find some common ground in the wreckage of failed relationships. I can't help but wonder what love actually means when it always ends like this. She admits those feelings are gone now. We had no choice but to end it. It's a cold reality that love can just evaporate, leaving nothing behind but the fact that it once existed. I tell her I don't understand, and she just pats my head like a child. She tells me not to think too much about it, after all, I'm just a student. But there's one truth she can't avoid. Even if the love dies, the fact that you hurt someone stays with you forever. She offers me a smile that's full of old ghosts, her hand lingering on my face. It's a weight that never leaves. She tells me to wait a moment, heading off into the other room as I sit there, wondering why every woman in my life is so determined to haunt me. Then, she comes back. And my brain officially exits the building. She's wearing a sweater that has more air than fabric, a backless disaster that leaves absolutely nothing to the imagination. She asks me what I think with a playful smile, while I'm currently having a mental breakdown. My only thought is a scream. Do you want to kill me with those clothes? She's not finished. She practically crawls over me, her body pressing against mine as she laughs about her style. My rationality is officially in a tailspin, crumbling under the sheer pressure of her proximity and that ridiculous sweater. She asks if I'm feeling better, but all I'm feeling is a total system failure. I make a hasty retreat, bolting for the door before I lose whatever sanity I have left. I stumble back into my own apartment, My head a mess of crepes, confessions, and backless sweaters. My sister, Yuri, is there to greet me with her usual overbearing intensity. I'm practically vibrating with stress, telling her I'm going to take a shower just to wash the day off of me. My head is killing me, and the last thing I need is more domestic drama. While I hide in the bathroom, my mother's thoughts are elsewhere. She's looking at me, or the version of me she used to know, and wondering where that child went. I used to have a spark in my eyes, a brightness that made it seem like I could take on the world. She wonders if she gave me enough love back then, or if she's the one who let that light go out. There was a moment, an incident, and suddenly, I was someone else. She could feel me withdrawing, my eyes turning dark and cold as I started to reject her world. She felt like her words weren't reaching me anymore, as if a wall had been built between us that she didn't know how to climb. It was as if my very existence had been rewritten by trauma she couldn't understand. She remembers visiting my classroom. All the other kids would turn around, looking for their parents with shy, hopeful smiles. But I never turned. Not once. I just stared straight ahead, a wall of indifference that froze her in place. It was a silent rejection that she still carries with her every time she catches my eye now. She wants to make up for it. No matter how late it is, she wants to find a way to give me the love I missed. But she's not the only one feeling a sense of urgency. Yuri is watching the interactions with Himiyama-san with a strange, dark rivalry. She's not about to let anyone else into my orbit. I'm just trying to have a peaceful shower, but peace is a foreign concept in this house. The door slides open, and the last shred of my sanity goes with it. Yuri stands there, completely exposed and smiling like this is the most natural thing in the world. My brain flatlines. She looks at me, the shower head still in my hand, and delivers the line that guarantees I'll never have a normal day again. Let's take a bath together like before. She's already moving in, talking about washing my hair and my back as if we're still kids. I'm backed into a corner, my face a mess of heat and panic. This is it. This is my life now, surrounded by people who won't let me disappear. I can only think one thing as the water keeps running. I have no peace even at home. The morning commute is a special kind of hell, and for Kokonoe Yukito, it's just the start of another day trying to be invisible. The station announcement drones on about arrivals while he checks his phone, already mentally preparing for the suffocating weight of the crowd. He's got to move fast, or he'll be swallowed whole by the rush. Yukito stares into the packed car, a sea of suits and dead eyes. To him, this isn't just a commute, it's a ritual of misery for the masses. He sighs, stepping into the press of bodies, thinking to himself, full train, this is the baptism of the corporate slaves. He's been staying with his aunt, Seka-san, for about a month now, trying to find a rhythm in the chaos. Every day he takes this specific train at this specific time, fully aware that the popular kids are watching his every move. They look at him with a mix of confusion and jealousy, as if he's won some game they didn't even know they were playing. In the middle of the squeeze, he spots a girl whose face is drained of color, looking like she's about to collapse. He's seen this play out 100 times. He offers her his seat, but even as she thanks him, there's a voice in his head telling him to stop. He's had enough of being the good guy for a lifetime. Then, the air in the car changes. A man presses in close to another student, his hand wandering where it shouldn't. From across the aisle, Yumi and Shiiori catch a glimpse of the movement. Their eyes widen in horror, their breath hitching as they realize exactly what's happening in the shadows of the crowd. She doesn't think. She reacts. Yumi's hand shoots out, gripping a wrist with a strength born of pure adrenaline. She spins the suspect around, her face a mask of righteous fury, as the entire car goes silent. She stares right into the eyes of the person she's caught red-handed and barks. "Damn you, what do you think you're doing?" Yukito just stands there. He doesn't panic. He doesn't even look surprised. He just stares back with those hollow, lightless eyes, the gravity of the accusation sliding off him like rain on glass. He realizes he's stumbled into another nightmare, but his only thought is a weary question, am I in trouble again? The crowd starts to murmur, the poison of suspicion spreading through the car. Yumi is shouting now, her voice cracking as she demands an apology for a crime he hasn't committed. Yukito keeps his arms down, knowing that if he tries to pull away or fight back, the story will just get twisted further into something he can't escape. They're cornering him, convinced that his silence is a confession. They tell him it's better not to lie, that admitting it now will make it easier for him. But Yukito doesn't blink. He stares through them, his voice flat and unyielding as he delivers the only truth he has left. I won't admit to something I didn't do. The tension snaps when another passenger steps forward, pointing out that Yukito couldn't have been the one. She tells them to look closer, to remember the timing of when the real culprit actually moved. The color drains from Yumi's face, not from exhaustion this time, but from the sudden sickening realization of what she's just done. The real offender is long gone, lost in the crowd. The girls stand there, trembling and stammering as they try to process their catastrophic error. A mature woman nearby doesn't let them off easy, her voice cutting through their excuses like a blade. You girls almost ruined his life, you know? He doesn't wait for an apology. He doesn't even want one. He just adjusts his bag and prepares to vanish into the morning air. He thought he could do one small decent thing, but the universe corrected him immediately. As he walks away, his internal voice is cold and final. I shouldn't have tried to help. Yumi reaches out, her voice desperate, trying to pull him back into the light of a conversation. But Yukito is done. He tells them not to worry, that he won't be making the same mistake again. He turns his back on them, walking into the shadows of the station, leaving them standing there with nothing but their guilt and the sound of his receding footsteps. Noon rolls around and Yukito's seat is still empty. Kouki keeps checking his phone, wondering why his calls are going straight to voicemail. Then the door slams open and the atmosphere in the classroom curdles. The student council president is here, and by the look on her face, she isn't looking for a friendly chat. Fujishiro-sensei is just trying to enjoy her lunch in peace when the hurricane hits. Yuri grabs her, her eyes wide and wild, demanding answers that the teacher doesn't have. It's not just concern, it's an obsession that's finally broken its leash. Yuri is shaking the woman, screaming for her to say where her brother has gone. The story comes out in jagged, shameful pieces, the accusation, the crowd, and Yukito's silent, crushing acceptance of it all. They realize that if things had gone just a little bit differently, he would have been expelled, his future erased in a single morning. Yuri stands there, the anger draining away into a cold, hollow dread as she realizes, so that's why he didn't come today. They've finally done it. They've broken the last thing he had. They didn't just hurt him. They poisoned his very concept of what is right. Shiiori looks at her hands, feeling the heavy burden of the sin she's committed, realizing that some wounds don't heal, they just fester. She knows she has to make it right, or she'll never be able to look at herself again. I have to make amends. Yuri can't stop herself. She dials his number, her fingers trembling as the line rings once, then twice. When he finally picks up, the relief is almost enough to make her collapse, but the silence on the other end is terrifying. She grips the phone like a lifeline, her voice a desperate whisper. Yukito, where are you right now? He's at the coast, watching the waves roll in, sounding more peaceful than he ever has at home. He mentions that he lost something, and he's just waiting to find it. But then he delivers the blow that stops her heart. He tells her he'll be home soon, but it won't be for long. After I finish high school, I won't bother you anymore, Yuri-san. The world stops. Yuri stares at the phone, the words not bothering her anymore, echoing like a death sentence. She's desperate to scream, to tell him that's not what she wanted, but the line is already dead. She clutches the device to her chest, sobbing as she begs the empty air. Yukito, stop this, that's not what I really meant to say. The girls watch her in stunned silence as Yuri brushes past them, her shadow long and jagged on the floor. She doesn't look at them. She doesn't even see them. She is lost in a private hell of her own making, her heart hardening into something sharp and lethal. As she steps through the door, one thought burns through the grief. I will never forgive you. Down by the water, Yukito is in a different world. He skipped school. He's a delinquent now, and honestly, he doesn't hate it. He finds a wallet on the ground and starts wondering about the statistics of honesty in Japan. He inspects the leather in his hands, wondering if he'll ever be able to get back the things he's truly lost. His phone buzzes with messages from people who claim to care, but the words mean nothing to him. He's lost the capacity to feel affection. It's like a limb that's been amputated. He can remember what it was like to move it, but the connection is gone. He's a black hole, pulling people in only to let them wither in the dark. Yuri is walking through the halls like a ghost. She can't get his face out of her mind, that melancholic, hollow expression that says everything is already over. She looks at her hands, still feeling the phantom warmth of where she used to hold him, realizing that the brother she knew is becoming a stranger. She carries a secret that burns hotter than any anger. She never talks about that time, terrified that if someone finds out, her life will truly end. She stares into the distance, the crushing guilt of her irreparable sin stealing the breath from her lungs as she admits the truth to herself. That day, I tried to kill my brother. Years ago, they were everything to each other. Their mother was always busy, so Yuri became his world. She loved him with a fierce, childish intensity, and Yukito adored her in return, always calling out for his big sister. But even then, the seeds of something darker were being sown in the garden of her heart. Then Maki-chan appeared, and the simple world Yuri built started to crack. She saw her brother laughing with someone else, playing with someone else, and the jealousy was a physical pain in her chest. A possessive, ugly desire took root, whispering that if she couldn't have all of him, then no one should. The pressure finally blew. She shoved him back, her small face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated hate. She didn't want him near her, she didn't want him anywhere. She screamed the words that would haunt them both for a decade. "Go away. I hate you. Just disappear." Time slowed down as he tumbled backward off the metal bars. Yuri watched him fall, her heart stopping as the sound of the impact echoed through the park. She stood at the top, frozen, staring down at the broken boy in the dirt. He wasn't moving. He wasn't making a sound. The silence was the loudest thing she'd ever heard. She ran. She ran until her lungs burned, fleeing from the horror of what she'd done. She told her mother. They rushed back to the park, but the dirt was empty. Yukito was gone. For 6 agonizing days, the world was a void, until the police finally found him in a neighboring city, barely clinging to life. They found him in a hospital bed, his head wrapped in bandages, his small frame looking far too fragile for the machines surrounding him. Yuri could barely breathe, her skin crawling with the knowledge that she was the reason he was here. She looked at him, her heart breaking, knowing that things could never, ever go back to the way they were. He woke up, and he didn't scream, he didn't cry. He just looked at her with those terrifyingly empty eyes and spoke with a voice that sounded 1,000 years old. He told her he was sorry for coming back, that he tried to do what she asked. He looked right at her and whispered, "I'm sorry I couldn't disappear." He didn't disappear from the world, but he disappeared from himself. He forgave her immediately, but that was the scariest part. He didn't forgive her because he was kind. He forgave her because he lost the capacity to be angry. One by one, his emotions flickered out like candles in a draft, leaving only a hollow shell behind. Every time she looks at him now, she sees the ghost of the boy she broke. She's dying to cry, to beg for an apology she doesn't deserve, to hear him call her sister just one more time. But she knows the clock is ticking. He's already halfway out the door, and this time, he might actually succeed in vanishing for good. Her words are still there, buried in his chest like rusted daggers, and she's the only one who can't pull them out. She's convinced that no one else can save him, that it has to be her. But the more she tries to fix what's broken, the more she realizes that she might just be grinding the shards into dust. The next day, the tension in the classroom is thick enough to choke on. The door slides open, and Yukito steps in, looking as detached and exhausted as ever. But before he can even reach his desk, the shadows fall across him. Shiiori and Hinagi are there, their faces set in grim determination. They aren't letting him go this time. He just stares at them, a single weary sound escaping his lips. "Wet? What?" The school gossip mill is already redlining before the first bell even rings. Word spreads like a wildfire. The student council president is going after Kokonoe from Class B. Yukito just wants to vanish into the floorboards, but the shadows are closing in. 2 girls, the very ones who tried to wreck his life yesterday with a false accusation, are standing right in his path. The tension is thick enough to choke on until one of them asks the unthinkable. "Are you really going to do it?" Their knees hit the linoleum with a bone-rattling thud. In the middle of the crowded hallway, the president and vice president of the student council prostrate themselves in a perfect, desperate dojiza. "We're truly deeply sorry, please forgive us." Yukito's social life just got hit by a tactical nuke. Every phone in the vicinity is out, recording the spectacle as he stands there like a feudal lord receiving tribute. He attempts to play it off with a peace sign, but the internal screaming is real. He begs them to stop, desperately insisting that this whole public execution of dignity has to be a joke. Mutsuki isn't backing down. She looks up with eyes burning with a terrifying level of sincerity. I want to apologize properly for hurting you. Yukito's response is a flat, exhausted dismissal. He just wants them to leave so he can pretend this never happened. But she's already committed to the bit, and the bit is absolute social ruin. She lunges forward, her voice projecting like she's in a theater production rather than a high school hallway. Grab me! The spectators are losing their minds. Yukito can only offer a strained smile, realizing that a student council president with a loud voice and zero shame is the final boss of his peaceful life. Yukito's brain short-circuits as she pulls out a small, sleek box. It's 0.01 millimeter thin, and she's offering it to him with a blush that suggests she's either the bravest or the most unhinged girl in school. I would like you to use this if possible. Yukito stares at the ceiling, his soul slowly leaving his body. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. The vice president tries to play the voice of reason, but Mutsuki is already in the stratosphere. She declares she's completely sane while clutching the box like a holy relic. Then the real terror begins. She puts a hand over Yukito's mouth, leaning in with a look that says she's ready to investigate every single thing that makes him happy, starting right now. She's actually doing it. She's unbuttoning her blouse to atone for the trouble she caused. Please, accept this. Yukito's eyes are wide with the kind of fear you only see in disaster movies. He's backpedaling so hard he might break the sound barrier. Even the vice president has reached her limit, begging Mutsuki to calm the hell down. He doesn't just leave, he teleports. A clean tactical retreat as the hallway echoes with the word pervert. He tells himself the smartest move in a crisis is a quick withdrawal, but the damage is done. The rumors are already evolving, twisting the chaos into a legend that's far worse than the truth. By the next day, Kokonoe Yukito is gone. In his place stands the third-year Casanova. The whispers are everywhere. He apparently made the president beg for a sexual favor. Yukito tries to lean into the absurdity, winking at the rumors like he's actually the player they think he is. If he doesn't take pride in his own mental resistance, he's going to snap. If I don't, I'll be in trouble. The morning takes another turn for the weird when he finds a letter in his locker. A love letter? The classroom transforms into a den of wolves, eyes flashing with pure, unadulterated jealousy. Damn you, popular handsome guy, DIE, the sheer volume of the hate is almost impressive. His friends are having a field day debating whether he's actually a psychopath or just a lucky lunatic. They're already making hashtags for social media, treating his life like a trending topic. Yukito finally snaps, shouting at them to shut up and keep the rumors off the internet. But the tide of the weirdo label has already come in. He should be living the quiet life of an introvert, but instead, he's staring at a note that says, "Please come to the study room after class." It looks like a classic love letter, but in this school that usually means a trap. He heads toward the building, wondering which version of the disaster is waiting behind the door. The girl waiting for him isn't there for a confession. She's Humura from Class C, an old face from middle school. She doesn't waste time on pleasantries. Her gaze is sharp, judgmental, and heavy with a request that feels more like an order. Free Shiiori. She lays the blame right at his feet. Shiiori is depressed, and according to Humura, it's all because of him. She talks about their friendship and how painful it is to watch Shiiori crumble. Yukito listens, but there's a cold wall in his eyes. He can tell she's sincere, which makes the weight of the accusation even heavier. She's asking him not to get involved with her ever again. Yukito doesn't argue. He doesn't defend himself. He just looks at her and asks, "So what am I supposed to do?" When she tells him to give up on Shiiori, he barely blinks. To him, it's simple math. If his existence causes her pain, he should be the one to vanish. So you're going to give up on Shiiori that easily? Humura's resolve wavers. She knows why Shiiori chose this school. It was to follow him, to be near him. She asks how he can ignore all that effort, all that favor she's showing him. Yukito's face is a blank slate. He knows the truth, but favor is just a pretty word for a debt he can't pay. It's not right and he knows it. He decides it's time to be firm. If he wants Shiiori to stop hurting, he has to be the villain. He smiles, a hollow, terrifyingly pleasant mask. "You want Kimishiro to leave me alone, don't you? Try again next time." He walks away, the sound of the door closing echoing like a gavel. For the good of both of them, they should just stop. It's time to move on. He looks back on those days on the court. It wasn't all bad. There was a time when the sweat and the heat felt like they meant something. But those days are a ghost, a past he can never get back, no matter how hard he tries to reach for it. The peace of the hallway is shattered by a human hurricane. Humura Toshiro, third-year basketball captain, is on the warpath. Is Kokonoe Yukito here? Yukito's face instantly goes flat. He knows exactly what kind of person this is. The standard hot-blooded sports protagonist. He has a very bad feeling about this. Humura has heard the rumors from his seniors. He's been working hard for 3 years, but the team is falling apart. They only have 9 people left. He practically begs Yukito to join them for the tournament, asking for his strength like he's a legendary hero returning from exile. Yukito tries to explain that his passion for the club broke a long time ago, but Humura isn't listening. Then, the real reason comes out. Humura wants to look good so he can confess to a girl. It's for you, he points a dramatic finger. But Yukito's reaction is a deadpan stare. He doesn't want to be a part of this rom-com nonsense. The guy is a total hot-blooded idiot, and Yukito can feel the eyes of the whole class on him again. It gets worse. Kouki jumps in, excited for the chance to play alongside Yukito again. They're setting up a 3x3 match after school like it's a foregone conclusion. Yukito is standing there, completely invisible as they plan his schedule for him. He's being bullied into a sports manga plot against his will. The rumors hit the internet like a freight train. Is it true he made the president Dojeza? Is he really Yuri's little brother? The girls in the back are freaking out, convinced that someone definitely took a photo. It's not a joke anymore, it's getting serious. Yuri watches from the stairs, her expression unreadable as she hears the whispers. She remembers him in middle school, sweat on his brow, the perfect arc of a jump shot. He was in such good form then. She wonders if she'll ever get to see that version of him again, or if she's the person responsible for breaking it permanently. The rumors have reached peak absurdity. The Casanova is going to play basketball for a bet involving a girl. Yukito is stretching, trying to block out the noise. He wants to go home, he wants to disappear, but every person in that gym is screaming for Kokonoe Yukito, and he's starting to feel like a zoo animal. Humura explains the stakes. If they win, Yukito joins the club. If they lose, the club is abolished? Is this for real? The absurdity is at an all-time high. Yukito looks at the court, his eyes empty. He was expecting to lose from the very first year. It doesn't make sense anymore. Kouki is pumped, shouting that they're definitely going to win. He's the perfect shiny hero, and Yukito is just there. He has zero motivation. He doesn't care about the seniors or the club's fate. He just stares at Kouki's grin and wonders where all that misplaced confidence is coming from. The whistle blows and the world narrows down to the bounce of the ball. He used to play alone. It wasn't about the team or the glory, it was just a way to escape reality. He didn't care about his teammates then, and he doesn't care now. Then, in the summer of his second year, someone finally spoke to him. Kamishiro Shiiori. She was the person who reached out, the one who saw him through the fence, and she was the one who confessed her feelings, setting the stage for everything that would eventually fall apart. To be continued. Before the isolation, before the silence, there was just a girl watching a boy through a chain-link fence. Shiiori remembers the rhythm of the bounce, a sound that echoed through the park every weekend like a heartbeat. He was always there, alone, carving out a world for himself one shot at a time. Shiiori couldn't look away, drawn into the orbit of his obsession. Morning and night, the gym belonged to him. Even among the other club members, he felt like a foreign body, an intense, serious presence that made their casual laughter feel shallow. He wasn't playing a game, he was fighting a war only he could see. He never asked anyone to match his pace, but his silence carried a weight that forced the whole club to change. Driven by a curiosity she couldn't name, Shiiori finally stepped onto his court. She watched the sweat drip from his chin before asking the only thing she could think of. "Hey, how can you work so hard?" Shiiori was used to the attention. She was the girl boys tripped over themselves to talk to, the one who collected confessions like bookmarks. But Yukito was different. When he looked at her, his eyes didn't sparkle with interest. They were dark, stagnant, and entirely elsewhere. There was something broken in him even then, an imbalance that made him feel dangerous and magnetic all at once. Despite the shadows in his gaze, his words were always gentle. It made Shiiori wonder what it would take to make those empty eyes focus on her and actually see something worth wanting. Comfort set in before she even realized she was falling. He became her anchor, a safe place where she could just breathe. But that safety was a trap. By the time she realized he was more than just a friend, her heart was already too far gone to turn back. Then came the autumn of their second year, and the team finally tasted blood. They tore through the tournament, landing in the top 16, a miracle for a club that had long been nothing more than a footnote. Suddenly Yukito wasn't just the lonely boy in the gym, he was the school's hero, bathed in a spotlight he never asked for. The squeak of sneakers on the hardwood took on a new urgency. His teammates stopped playing for fun and started playing for keeps, their ambition catching fire from his steady burning intensity. He was the eye of the storm, the single point around which everything else finally began to turn. His fame leaked into the girls' basketball club, and suddenly every hallway conversation was a minefield of praise for Kokonoe-kun. Shiiori laughed along with her friends, hiding a twisting knot of anxiety. She felt special being close to him, but she could feel the world trying to crowd in on their private corner. She watched him from the shadows of the lockers, the realization finally hitting her with the force of a hammer to the chest. It wasn't just friendship anymore. The way her chest tightened when he spoke, the way she wanted him all to herself, it was undeniable. She clutched her shirt, heart pounding against her palm as she whispered the truth. This is love. Under the burning orange of the sunset, the words finally spilled out, raw and trembling. She stood before him, her bag gripped tight as she laid her heart bare on the pavement. Yuki, I like you. For the first time, the empty look in his eyes shattered, replaced by a shock that made him look human again. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. He asked for time until the end of the tournament, and Shiiori forced a smile, masking the terror that he was just letting her down slowly. She skipped away with a promise to wait, determined to stay bright so he wouldn't see her shaking. She remembered what he told her about why he started playing. A childhood friend had left him, and he wanted to drown the lingering feelings of love in the sweat of the court. To Shiiori, the tournament wasn't just a game, it was the moment he would finally decide if he was ready to let someone else in. She lived in the space between hope and fear, convincing herself that his kindness was a sign. She was certain that once the final whistle blew, he would give her the answer she was dying to hear. She was so sure of her future that she never saw the trap she was about to set for herself. Back at school, the pressure cooker of social standing began to hiss. Her friends cornered her, eyes gleaming with the hunger for fresh gossip. Hey Shiiori, did you confess to Kokonoe-kun? The question hit her like a spotlight, and the cool girl persona she spent years building started to crack under the heat. Her mind went white. This feeling was precious, sweet, something she felt a desperate need to protect in a glass case. But the air around her was poisonous with the judgment of girls who saw romance as a game of status. She couldn't let them laugh at her. She couldn't let them see her heart. The lie slipped out before she could stop it, a desperate defense mechanism that would ruin everything. Yuki and I aren't like that. She laughed, the sound hollow and sharp. I just feel sorry for him because he's always alone, so I'm just looking out for him. The words hung in the air, a betrayal she hadn't even meant to commit. The atmosphere in the room went dead. Shiiori leaned into the lie, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in her gut. She delivered the final blow to save her pride. I really don't care about Yuki. She was looking at her friends, laughing, completely unaware that the world was ending behind her back. He was right there. Standing in the hallway, his face a mask of total, chilling indifference. The boy she claimed to pity had heard every word of her performance. Shiori's soul seemed to leave her body as their eyes met. His were empty, but for the first time, that emptiness was directed entirely at her. He walked past without a word, leaving Shiiori paralyzed in the doorway. Her pulse was a drumbeat of panic in her throat. Her friends continued to chirp about honesty and rumors, but Shiiori couldn't hear them. All she could hear was the echo of her own voice saying she didn't care. The terror was a physical weight, pinning her to the floor. She felt the urge to run after him, to scream that it was all a lie, but her legs were lead. She stood there, drowning in her own cowardice, while the clock in the hallway ticked away the last seconds of the life she knew. The days that followed were a slow-motion nightmare. He was still gentle, still polite, the perfect friend, but that kindness was a wall she couldn't climb. He didn't confront her, didn't yell. He just treated her like a stranger he was obligated to be nice to, and that hurt infinitely more than rage. As the tournament loomed, the pressure became unbearable. On the walk home, Shiiori finally snapped, chasing him up the stairs to demand the answer he promised. She was still clinging to the hope that his answer could fix the bridge she'd already burned. He stopped on the landing, his voice as cold as a winter morning. "Shiiori, you don't need to date me anymore." He told her not to worry about him, that he actually preferred being alone. He was giving her exactly what she'd asked for in that hallway, a way out, and the reality of it was crushing her heart into dust. He turned back to face her, his expression unreadable, yet lethal. He didn't give her the dignity of a fight, he just dropped the ultimate truth, a final dismissal of the girl he once trusted. "I never thought you'd be such a stupid liar." She broke. The tears finally came, a frantic scramble of no and that's not true. But he was already gone, he told her. The answer was no, and that walking home with her had become a burden. He was cutting her out of his life, one cold sentence at a time. She couldn't let it end like this. She lunged forward, her shoes slipping on the concrete as she tried to grab his sleeve. "Wait! I really love you!" She was screaming at his back, desperate to reclaim the truth, but her momentum was already working against her. He turned, his eyes widening as she stumbled. "Shiiori?" For a split second, the indifference vanished, replaced by the instinct to protect her. He reached out, his fingers brushing hers as they both tumbled over the edge and into the void of the concrete steps. They landed hard at the bottom, the world spinning into a blur of pain and dust. Shiiori could only stare at him, her vision swimming as she saw him grimacing. She had wanted to catch him, but instead, she'd dragged them both down. The bruise was dark, blooming across his leg like a curse. The diagnosis was final. He was out of the tournament. The very thing he had worked for morning and night, the goal that was supposed to redefine his life, was gone shattered on the stairs because of a lie and a stumble. Back in the gym, the ball continues to bounce, indifferent to the past. Yukito moves with a ghost's grace, wondering if anything would be different if he'd played back then. If he'd won, if he'd stayed, but those are questions without answers now. He is completely indifferent to the seniors or the match, he's just waiting for the clock to run out. His only focus is the pretty boy Mihou Kouki, who's currently running around like he's the star of a sports anime. To Yukito, it's just a nuisance, a noise he's forced to endure. Kouki is laying it on thick dunks, flashy dribbles, and a grin that says he knows the girls in the stands are watching. Yukito just sighs, observing the chaos with a dry, tired eye. "Aren't you cheating, pretty boy?" he mutters, unimpressed by the theatricality of it all. Even without the passion, his eyes still work. He dissects the opponents in seconds. Their movements are unrefined, their bodies big but sluggish. He can see their next 3 steps before they even take the first. This is hardly a challenge, it's just a chore that needs finishing. The game picks up speed, a blur of motion and sweat. Kouki notices Yukito's precision, his eyes widening as he realizes his teammate isn't even trying and still outclassing everyone. "We're going to win," Kouki says, fueled by a confidence that Yukito finds utterly exhausting. While Kouki sweats, Yukito's mind drifts to Japanese class. He hates questions that ask what the author was feeling, it's all just guesswork. He treats the game the same way. He doesn't care about the heart behind the movement, just the mechanics of the win. The score tells the story. The opponents are bent over, lungs burning, while Yukito stands in the center of the court, like he hasn't even broken a sweat. The gym is silent, the crowd finally realizing that the Casanova might be the most dangerous player they've ever seen. It's over. The ball drops through the net one last time, and Yukito just wants to go home. It's so boring, he sighs, his gaze already sliding toward the exit. But Kouki isn't finished. He steps into Yukito's path, a grin on his face that promises the piece is about to end. The shiny hero finally makes his move. Kouki points a finger straight at Yukito's chest, his voice ringing through the gym. "I challenge you, Yukito. The isolation is broken. The world has finally found a way to drag the boy who wanted to be invisible back into the light."